Section 7 of Love Letters of Dorothy Osborne. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Ruth Golding. The Love Letters of Dorothy Osborne. Section 7. Letter 31. Sir, it was sure a less fault in me to make a scruple of reading your letter to your brother, which in all likelihood I could not be concerned in, than for you to condemn the freedom you take of giving me directions in a thing where we are equally concerned. Therefore, if I forgive you this, you may justly forgive me t'other. And upon these terms we are friends again, are we not? No, stay. I have another fault to chide you for. You doubted whether you had not writ too much, and whether I could have the patience to read it or not. Why do you dissemble so abominably? You cannot think these things. How I should love that plain-heartedness you speak of, if you would use it. Nothing is civil but that amongst friends. Your kind sister ought to chide you too for not writing to her, unless you have been with her to excuse it. I hope you have, and pray take some time to make her one visit from me, and carry my humble service with you, and tell her that 'tis not my fault that you are no better. I do not think I shall see the town before Michaelmas, therefore you may make what sallies you please. I am tied here to expect my brother Peyton, and then possibly we may go up together, for I should be at home again before the term. Then I may show you my niece, and you may confess that I am a kind aunt to desire her company, since the disadvantage of our being together will lie wholly upon me. But I must make it my bargain that if I come, you will not be frighted to see me. You think, I'll warrant, you have courage enough to endure a worse sight. You may be deceived. You never saw me in mourning yet. Nobody that has will e'er desire to do it again, for their own sakes as well as mine. Oh, 'tis a most dismal dress. I have not dared to look in the glass since I wore it, and certainly, if it did so ill with other people as it does with me, it would never be worn. You told me of writing to your father, but you did not say whether you had heard from him, or how he did. May not I ask it? Is it possible that he saw me? Where were my eyes that I did not see him? For I believe I should have guessed at least that 'twas he if I had. They say you are very like him, but 'tis no wonder neither that I did not see him, for I saw not you when I met you there. 'Tis a place I look upon nobody in, and it was a reproach to me by a kinsman but a little before you came to me, that he had followed me to 6 shops to see when I would take notice of him, and was at last going away with a belief 'twas not I, because I did not seem to know him. Other people make it so much their business to gape, that I'll swear they put me so out of countenance I dare not look up for my life. I am sorry for General Monk's misfortunes, because you say he is your friend, but otherwise she will suit well enough for the rest of the great ladies of the times, and become Greenwich as well as some others do the rest of the king's houses. If I am not mistaken, that Monk has a brother lives in Cornwall, an honest gentleman, I have heard, and one that was a great acquaintance of a brother of mine, who was killed there during the war, and so much his friend that upon his death he put himself and his family into mourning for him, which is not usual, I think, where there is no relation of kindred. I will take order that my letters shall be left with Jones, and yours called for there. As long as your last was, I read it over thrice in less than an hour, though, to say truth, I had skipped some on it the last time. I could not read my own confession so often. Love is a terrible word, and I should blush to death if anything but a letter accused me on it. Pray be merciful, and let it run friendship in my next charge. My lady sends me word she has received those parts of Cyrus I lent you. Here is another for you, which, when you have read, you know how to dispose. There are 4 pretty stories in it: L'amant absente, L'amant non aimé, l'amant jaloux, et l'amant dont la maîtresse est mort. Tell me which you have most compassion for, when you have read what every one says for himself. Perhaps you will not think it so easy to decide which is the most unhappy, as you may think by the titles their stories bear. Only let me desire you not to pity the jealous one, for I remember I could do nothing but laugh at him as one that sought his own vexation. This, and the little journeys, you say, you are to make, will entertain you till I come, which, sure, will be as soon as possible I can, since 'tis equally desired by you and your faithful. Letter 32. Sir, all my quarrels to you are kind ones, for, sure, 'tis alike impossible for me to be angry as for you to give me the occasion. Therefore, when I chide, unless it be that you are not careful enough of yourself, and hazard too much a health that I am more concerned in than my own, you need not study much for excuses. I can easily forgive you anything but want of kindness. The judgment you have made of the 4 lovers I recommended to you does so perfectly agree with what I think of them, that I hope it will not alter when you have read their stories. L'amant absent has, in my opinion, a mistress so much beyond any of the rest, that to be in danger of losing her is more than to have lost the others. L'amant non aimé was an ass, under favour, notwithstanding the Princesse Cléobuline's letter. His mistress had caprices that would have suited better with our amant jaloux than with anybody else. And the Prince Artibi was much to blame that he outlived his belle Leontine. But if you have met with the beginning of the story of Amestris and Agratides, you will find the rest of it in this part I send you now. And 'tis to me one of the prettiest I have read, and the most natural. They say the gentleman that writes this romance has a sister that lives with him, a maid, and she furnishes him with all the little stories that come between, so that he only contrives the main design. And when he wants something to entertain his company withal, he calls to her for it. She has an excellent fancy, sure, and a great wit. But I am sorry to tell it you, they say 'tis the most ill-favoured creature that ever was born, and 'tis often so. How seldom do we see a person excellent in anything, but they have some great defect with it that pulls them low enough to make them equal with other people. And there is justice in it. Those that have fortunes have nothing else, and those that want it deserve to have it. That's but small comfort, though, you'll say. 'Tis confessed, but there is no such thing as perfect happiness in this world. Those that have come the nearest it had many things to wish. And, bless me, whither am I going? Sure 'tis the death's head I see stand before me puts me into this grave discourse. Pray do not think I meant that for a conceit neither. How idly have I spent 2 sides of my paper, and am afraid, besides, I shall not have time to write 2 more. Therefore I'll make haste to tell you that my friendship for you makes me concerned in all your relations, that I have a great respect for Sir John merely as he is your father, and that 'tis much increased by his kindness to you, that he has all my prayers and wishes for his safety, and that you will oblige me in letting me know when you hear any good news from him. He has met with a great deal of good company, I believe. My Lady Ormond, I am told, is waiting for a passage, and divers others. But this wind, if I am not mistaken, is not good for them. In earnest, 'tis a most sad thing that a person of her quality should be reduced to such a fortune as she has lived upon these late years, and that she should lose that which she brought as well as that which was her husband's. Yet I hear she has now got some of her own land in Ireland granted her, but whether she will get it when she comes there is, I think, a question. We have a lady new come into this country that I pity too extremely. She is one of my Lord of Valentia's daughters, and has married an old fellow that is some 70, who has a house that is fitter for the hogs than for her. and a fortune that will not at all recompense the least of these inconveniences. Ah, 'tis most certain I should have chosen a handsome chain to lead my apes in before such a husband. But marrying and hanging go by destiny, they say. It was not mine, it seems, to have an emperor. The spiteful man, merely to vex me, has gone and married my countrywoman, my Lord Lee's daughter. What a multitude of willow garlands I shall weave before I die! I think I had best make them into faggots this cold weather. The flame they would make in a chimney would be of more use to me than that which was in the hearts of all those that gave them me, and would last as long. I did not think I should have got thus far. I have been so persecuted with visits all this week, I have had no time to dispatch anything of business, so that now I have done this, I have 40 letters more to write. How much rather would I have them all to you than to anybody else? Or rather, how much better would it be if there needed none to you, and that I could tell you without writing how much I am yours, faithful friend and servant, Dorothy Osborne. Letter 33. Sir, let not the apprehension that others say fine things to me make your letters at all the shorter. For if it were so, I should not think they did, and so long you are safe. My brother Peyton does indeed sometimes send me letters that may be excellent for aught I know, and the more likely because I do not understand them. But I may say to you, as to a friend, I do not like them, and have wondered that my sister, who, I may tell you too, and you will not think it vanity in me, had a great deal of wit, and was thought to write as well as most women in England, never persuaded him to alter his style, and make it a little more intelligible. He is an honest gentleman, in earnest, has understanding enough, and was an excellent husband to 2 very different wives, as 2 good ones could be. My sister was a melancholy, retired woman, and besides the company of her husband and her books, never sought any, but could have spent a life much longer than hers was in looking to her house and her children. This lady is of a free, jolly humour, loves cards and company, and is never more pleased than when she sees a great many others that are so too. Now with both these he so perfectly complied, that 'tis hard to judge which humour he is more inclined to in himself, perhaps to neither, which makes it so much the more strange. His kindness to his first wife may give him an esteem for her sister, but he was too much smitten with this lady to think of marrying anybody else, and seriously I could not blame him, for she had, and has yet, great loveliness in her. She was very handsome, and is very good. One may read it in her face at first sight. A woman that is hugely civil to all people, and takes as generally as anybody that I know, but not more than my cousin Molly's letters do, but which yet you do not like, you say, nor I neither, I'll swear. And if it be ignorance in us both, we'll forgive it one another. In my opinion, these great scholars are not the best writers, of letters I mean. Of books perhaps they are. I never had, I think, but 1 letter from Sir Justinian, but 'twas worth 20 of anybody else's to make me sport. It was the most sublime nonsense that in my life I ever read, and yet I believe he descended as low as he could to come near my weak understanding. 'Twill be no compliment after this to say I like your letters in themselves, not as they come from one that is not indifferent to me, but seriously I do. All letters, methinks, should be free and easy as one's discourse, not studied as an oration, nor made up of hard words like a charm. 'Tis an admirable thing to see how some people will labour to find out terms that may obscure a plain sense. Like a gentleman I know who would never say the weather grew cold, but that winter began to salute us. I have no patience for such coxcombs, and cannot blame an old uncle of mine that threw the Standish at his man's head, because he writ a letter for him where, instead of saying, as his master bid him, that he would have writ it himself, but he had the gout in his hand, he said, that the gout in his hand would not permit him to put pen to paper. The fellow thought he had mended it mightily, and that putting pen to paper was much better than plain writing. I have no patience neither for these translations of romances. I met with Polexander and l'illustre Bassa, both so disguised that I, who am their old acquaintance, hardly know them. Besides that, there was still so much French in words and phrases that 'twas impossible for one that understands not French to make anything of them. If poor Prasimène be in the same dress, I would not see her for the world. She has suffered enough besides. I never saw but 4 tomes of her, and was told the gentleman that writ her story died when those were finished. I was very sorry for it, I remember, for I liked, so far as I had seen of it, extremely. Is it not my good Lord of Monmouth, or some such honourable personage, that presents her to the English ladies? I have heard many people wonder how he spends his estate. I believe he undoes himself with printing his translations. Nobody else will undergo the charge, because they never hope to sell enough of them to pay themselves withal. I was looking t'other day in a book of his where he translates pipero as piper, and 20 words more that are as false as this. My Lord Broghill sure will give us something worth the reading. My Lord Say, I am told, has writ a romance since his retirement in the Isle of Lundy, and Mr. Waller, they say, is making one of our wars, which, if he does not mingle with a great deal of pleasing fiction, cannot be very diverting, sure, the subject is so sad. But all this is nothing to my coming to town, you'll say. 'Tis confessed, and that I was willing as long as I could to avoid saying anything, when I had nothing to say worth your knowing. I am still obliged to wait my brother Peyton and his lady coming. I had a letter from him this week, which I will send you, that you may see what hopes he gives. As little room as I have left, too, I must tell you what a present I had made me to-day. 2 of the finest young Irish greyhounds that e'er I saw. A gentleman that serves the generals sent them me. They are newly come over, and sent for by Henry Cromwell, he tells me, but not how he got them for me. However, I am glad I have them, and much the more because it dispenses with a very unfit employment that your father, out of his kindness to you and his civility to me, was content to take upon him. Your faithful friend and servant, Dorothy Osborne. Letter 34. Sir, Jane was so unlucky as to come out of town before your return, but she tells me she left my letter with Nan Stacy for you. I was in hope she would have brought me one from you, and because she did not, I was resolved to punish her, and kept her up till 1 o'clock telling me all her stories. Sure, if there be any truth in the old observation, your cheeks glowed notably, and 'tis most certain that if I were with you, I should chide notably. What do you mean to be so melancholy? By her report your humour is grown insupportable. I can allow it not to be altogether what she says, and yet it may be very ill too. But if you loved me, you would not give yourself over to that which will infallibly kill you if it continue. I know too well that our fortunes have given us occasion enough to complain, and to be weary of her tyranny, but alas, would it be better if I had lost you, or you me? Unless we were sure to die both together, 'twould but increase our misery, and add to that which is more already than we can well tell how to bear. You are more cruel than she regarding a life that's dearer to me than that of the whole world besides, and which makes all the happiness I have or ever shall be capable of. Therefore, by all our friendship, I conjure you, and by the power you have given me, command you, to preserve yourself with the same care that you would have me live. 'Tis all the obedience I require of you, and will be the greatest testimony you can give me of your faith. When you have promised me this, 'tis not impossible that I may promise you shall see me shortly, though my brother Peyton, who says he will come down to fetch his daughter, hinders me from making the journey in compliment to her. Yet I shall perhaps find business enough to carry me up to town. 'Tis all the service I expect from two girls whose friends have given me leave to provide for, that some order I must take for the disposal of them may serve for my pretence to see you. But then I must find you pleased and in good humour, merry as you were wont to be when we first met, if you will not have me show that I am nothing akin to my cousin Osborne's lady. But what an age 'tis since we first met, and how great a change it has wrought in both of us! If there had been as great a one in my face, it could be either very handsome or very ugly. For God's sake, when we meet, let us design one day to remember old stories in, to ask one another by what degrees our friendship grew to this height 'tis at. I know not whether I gave it you willingly or not at first. No, to speak ingenuously, I think you got an interest there a good while before I thought you had any, and it grew so insensibly, and yet so fast, that all the traverses it has met with since has served rather to discover it to me than at all to hinder it. By this confession you will see I am past all disguise with you, and that you have reason to be satisfied with knowing as much of my heart as I do myself. Will the kindness of this letter excuse the shortness on it? For I have 20 more, I think, to write, and the hopes I had of receiving one from you last night kept me writing this when I had more time. Or, if all this will not satisfy, make your own conditions, so you do not return it me by the shortness of yours. Your servant kisses your hands, and I am your faithful friend and servant, Dorothy Osborne. Letter 35. Nothing that is paper can scape me when I have time to write, and 'tis to you. But that I am not willing to excite your envy, I would tell you how many letters I have dispatched since I ended yours, and if I could show them you, 'twould be a certain cure for it, for they are all very short ones, and most of them merely compliments, which I am sure you care not for. I had forgot in my other to tell you what Jane requires for the satisfaction of what you confess you owe her. You must promise her to be merry, and not to take cold when you are at the tennis court, for there she hears you are found. Because you mention my Lord Broghill and his wit, I have sent you some of his verses. My brother urged them against me one day in a dispute, where he would needs make me confess that no passion could be long-lived, and that such as were most in love forgot that ever they had been so within a 12-month after they were married. And in earnest, the want of examples to bring for the contrary puzzled me a little, so that I was fain to bring out those pitiful verses of my Lord Byron to his wife, which was so poor an argument that I was e'en ashamed on myself. And he quickly laughed me out of countenance with saying they were just such as a married man's flame would produce and a wife inspire. I send you a love letter too, which, simple as you see, it was sent me in very good earnest, and by a person of quality, as I was told. If you read it when you go to bed, 'twill certainly make your sleep approved. I am your faithful friend and servant, Dorothy Osborne. End of Section 7.